Let's go to Lawrence in Philadelphia. What's up, brother Lawrence?
Hey, Doc. How you doing?
I'm good, my man. How are you?
Well, I have kind of a rough season going on right now.
Yeah,
Appreciate
man.
you taking your time to speak with me.
Oh, you got it. Anytime. So what's up, my brother?
So I'm a single dad, and I've had both kids essentially full-time since October of 2018. My daughter turns 9 on Saturday, and my son is 11. My son is starting to become somewhat of an issue from a behavioral standpoint. He is struggling with life right now. He's full of tons of anxiety and frustration due to his mom essentially no longer playing any sort of active role in his life, which I completely understand.
Where is mom?
Mom is currently in a mental health facility outside of Philadelphia.
Yikes, man. How long is it degenerative? How long was that going on?
Well, she when I met her, I knew that she was regularly taking opioids because she was in a car accident in college when a tree fell on her car, and she suffered from chronic migraines. Okay. Back in the early 2000s, what the best neurologists would do is they would just toss a whole bunch of narcotics at you.
That's right.
Just to manage the pain, and when the effect of the narcotics took off, at that point in time, they would switch the dosage or the brand or whatever case it was, and unfortunately, she became hooked.
Yep.
I don't blame her for that. It's unfortunate, and I was somewhat ignorant to what narcotics could do to someone, because back when you and I were growing up, John, they didn't really refer to any type of opioid pandemic, and I just didn't know what the symptoms of addiction were with respect to something that brilliant doctors prescribed and was readily available at pharmacies.
That's right. Yeah. I'm so sorry. I've seen that up close. That'll take everything. I'm so sorry, man.
Yeah, it's unfortunate, and it ultimately changed everything in our lives. It tore our family apart. There were certain things that went on which just forced me to unfortunately file for a divorce, which I never saw myself doing, but here we are.
Yeah.
Other things started happening, at which point got my lawyer involved, and we filed for residential custody, and they've been living with me ever since. And since August of 2021, they've seen her in person like an hour and a half.
And was she institutionalized when they saw her?
No, she wasn't.
Okay.
She wasn't. She was living with their sister's father at the time. They have a sister that's going to be 3. They've seen her maybe a handful of times since she's been born because of issues with her mother.
Yeah.
It's really frustrating, and it's a lot of things. It's a lot on me, but I'm doing my best just to give the kids as regular of a life as possible under the circumstances.
So, first thing, do this for me, okay? Take as deep breath as you possibly can and hold it for a second. Hold it. No, you let it out, it's cheater.
I did.
Take it in.
Let me try again.
Take it in and hold
restart. You can edit this out.
Nope, we're leaving it in. Hold it. All right, let it out. And then I want you to drop your shoulders down as hard as you can. Pull them down, okay?
Sure.
I can feel you talking about this and starting to speed up your cadence, because this is still really, this is not as though this is a healing wound. This thing's still bleeding, right? The cut's still happening, right?
It's daily.
Yeah. All right. Was she taken when she was pregnant?
She was. We had her monitored by a different doctor that essentially weaned her down to a smaller dose, but she was still taking during both pregnancies.
Did either one of your kids, or your son especially, was he diagnosed with NOWS, neonatal opioid withdrawal syndrome?
He wasn't diagnosed with it. Shortly after he was born, he was put in the NICU just for monitoring.
Okay.
They were worried about that. They didn't do any of that with my daughter.
Okay. All right. So your wife wasn't on methadone or any other?
She was not on methadone, no.
Okay. So they were just cutting her dose. Okay. All right. So I want to be real careful about something, and hopefully this gives you some peace, even though it's going to feel like it's going to make things more chaotic. Okay. I want you to do your best you can from this point forward for the rest of your kid's life of not saying because of or due to, okay? Earlier on when you're talking about your son's anxiety, he's got this anxiety because he can't see mom. He probably has that anxiety for a whole cocktail of reasons, okay? And whenever we distill it down to a single single problematic data point. We try to solve that data point, and it never makes the whole thing better. And so I want to look at the whole ecosystem that's going on here, okay? There are and you probably know these, but this is just for the audience as much as it is for you. The longitudinal neurodevelopment literature is all over the place. And so one of the first things I do is I take animal models and I move them out. And when you do that, there's just not a ton of stuff out there. Some of them show opioid use in utero affects things like IQ and language development, all that kind of stuff. Some of them show no difference. Some of them show difference for up until like 4 or 5 months. Some of them show difference in boys and in girls. Almost all of them universally. This is with methadone, so I think it's with methadone. Maybe it's the other way. Show some sort of increased risk for anxiety, for ADHD, and all that. So that's cool to know that. Here's where I think a lot of those studies miss, and I don't blame the studies because they're just trying to set a baseline biochemically. But your kids have grown up in a world of chaos. Is that right?
Unfortunately, yep.
Hey, don't do that to yourself, okay? It just is. It's okay, let me give you that. It is unfortunate, but I don't want you to take ownership of the misfortune at this point, okay? They grew up with a mom as an addict. And for a kid, you know this, but that's so dysregulating to see a human in front of you and touch them, but they're not really there. You know what I mean?
Luckily, at the time, they're so young that I don't think they realized that.
Well, I'm telling you, their bodies for sure did. 1,000% did. They absorbed it. The same disconnect you felt relationally, where you could be holding hands with somebody that you knew was not there. You could sleep with somebody, have sex with somebody, and they're not there. They pick that same thing up, and it's exponentially worse because they have neuronal development going on right then. Okay, and so what I am most compelled by is Gabor Mate and others who have looked at prematernal stress, in utero stress in moms creates this downstream of this cocktail that pulses through these kids, and they end up with anxiety and all sorts of a cascade of things down the road. Why do I tell you that? The thing that you can control right now is the ecosystem, the peace, right? And that is where I want you to focus your energy on moving forward. So I just gave you a lot of info, and I didn't even let you ask your question. So what is your question?
The behavioral issues are starting to be something beyond my control.
Okay, tell me about them.
Starting to become just
talking back, hitting kids, biting kids. Like what are we talking about here?
He's been suspended a time or two due to physical issues. There was a time he started, throwing hands at a sitter. I've called the police on him on occasion because I didn't want to hurt him while restraining him, and he was just somewhat out of control.
Okay.
In terms of discipline, I have a hard time not yelling at times just because there seems to be nothing else to do at that time. I have him write sentences. Sentences was the latest thing that I've been doing in terms of discipline, and he absolutely hates that. But lately, when I say write sentences, he will just say, no, I'm not going to do that.
Yeah.
And all this stuff combined, the issues at school, his therapist is saying we want to get him psychoanalyzed. His family crisis counselor at school wants to get him psychoanalyzed. Law enforcement has spoken to him, and they say, he definitely needs some type of psychiatric evaluation. And I'm worried.
Yeah.
He's going to be put on meds.
Yeah.
Because I know what he did to his mom.
Yeah. And your fear is valid. Okay. Let me talk to you about a couple of things until we get to the psychoanalytic part. Okay. Or the psychoanalysis, not psychoanalytics. So I want you to start thinking about that body, that little boy's body. How old is he? You said?
He's 11.
11. Okay.
Fifth grade.
So you have a little boy whose body is being overwhelmed by the sensations and feelings. And that comes out with behaviors that in adults are criminal acts. And in children, it's simply symptomatic of a body that is, think of a cup underneath a faucet. It's just overflowing. Okay. And throwing hands, punching, swinging, yelling, just that caustic screaming is a body that's dysregulated, and this is going to sound counterintuitive, but that's a body screaming for connection in a backwards, chaotic way. And so it's a body screaming for boundaries in a chaotic way, and yet there's a dysregulation for when you put boundaries down. Now he's like, no, I'm not doing that. And so I want you to begin to think of punishment not as a way to force him to do things he doesn't like or are uncomfortable with him. Would you be willing to flip the whole paradigm around for me?
I'm willing to try anything, Doc.
Okay. I want you just to try this for 30 days. And if it's a bust, write me back. And I promise I'll read the email aloud on the show that I failed you. Okay? Here's what I want you to do. Well, let me ask you one more question. Have you ever sat down with him and just talked about Mom, how heartbreaking it is for everybody?
Yes.
Okay.
They are very difficult conversations.
Yeah. How do they go?
I mean, as of late, it's trying to understand. It's trying to tell him why he can't see Mom currently.
Okay.
To try to express why Mom's mind is sick.
Mm-hmm.
Every time he sees him, she looks normal, and her voice sounds normal. Having a kid comprehend that their brain is sick and making them do things or not do things that they should be doing, that's a very difficult concept.
Yeah.
And then the whole thing, like, there's no way for him even to talk to her. That's a hard thing,
Yeah.
If we've done the thing, well, it's almost like, she's dead. It's the same thing.
Yes, except she's not, and that's the problem. There's no closure, right?
No.
Yeah.
It's just she's not there.
Yeah.
And, he has a hard time thinking, well, Daddy, you did this where you keep me from Mommy, so I have him call my ex's mom. She'll confirm everything. I keep telling him how much I love him.
Yeah. Okay, so I want you to, this is not at this point about data. This is about his body, okay? And so what we're going to do is we're going to address the body here. Here's a couple ways we're going to do that. Number one, we're going to, if you don't already, invite him into this. Don't force him. The whole world's been forced upon him, okay? So I want you to invite him in to, and again, I got a 12-year-old, and I know this is awkward, okay? And even my son's like, Dad, and I just tell him, this one's for your old man, even though I know it's for him, is a 20 to 30 second hug a couple of times a day, maybe right before school and after school, and say, we're going to do hug time. And he may go, Dad, I'm not doing that. See if you can get him to buy into that, okay? And your daughter too. Cool?
Gotcha.
The second thing is I want you to find ways, highly intentional ways, not accidental ways, to put your hand on his skin, preferably on his face or on the back of his neck, okay? And when you're hugging him, I want you to put one hand on the back of his neck and hold that area 20 to 30 seconds, 2 or 3 times a day. Okay? There's a ton of bioregulatory sensory stuff that happens skin-to-skin transmission, and it's going to bring his heart rate down. It's going to bring his body down, okay? And all we're trying to do is teach him what it feels like to not be spun up. And we're going to teach him that in the presence of Dad and in the presence of relationship is where you find that spinning slow down. And right now, everything about relationships spins that sucker up. You see what I'm saying? These are quiet teaching moments that I'm stunned are not in every psychiatric office in the world. I would even go as far to say something as silly as, some sort of, hey, let me massage your fingers. Let me massage, we hold a lot of tension in our hands, a lot of tension in our feet. With little children, little kids who have been abused, one of the things that a therapist might do is take lotion and just rub feet, because all we're doing is teaching the body how to be touched and how to, okay? So that's number one. Number two, have y'all done any sort of letter writing to Mom?
No, I tried to get him to write in a journal just to capture his thoughts, and he's even hesitant to doing that.
Okay. 2 things to do there. Number one, get a journal that is between you two and tell him, hey, this is 2 secret guys, just for 2 dudes. And you write to him and leave it on his bed. And all he has to bring it back and put it on your bed. Hopefully it's got 1 line in it.
Sure.
And in that journal, I want you to do age-appropriate stuff, but let him know that you miss Mom. Let him know that today was a hard day, or today was a good day, or today I actually cried. And what we're teaching him is Dad's not crazy, and he's not crazy. And so his feelings start to look like Dad's, because right now you look like a big, strong, tough, got it all together guy, and we want to teach him, no, here's what's going on in dad's heart, and he can read it over and over and over again, okay? And hopefully he begins to share with you. I've heard parents write me back and say, my kid just wrote, today was good. And if they start weeping they've never had that level of connection, okay? Another one is write letters to mom, and it'd be cool if y'all did this together. And his letters may be short, and you can tell him. You can be really angry. You can be really sad. I want you to tell her about what happened today. But we're going to write these things, and we're going to put them in an envelope, and you are not going to mail them, okay?
Mm-hmm.
But this is an exercise, and you can commit to doing it too.
Sure.
We're teaching him, here's where those feelings that are burning holes in us, here's where they go. Here's a good place to do that, is to write it down, okay? And then here's the last one, and then we'll get to the medication stuff. The last one is, I want you to create with him and your daughter. I know this has been a mess. I know this is all hard. I miss mommy. Y'all miss mommy. But here's the world we're in right now. Mommy's in the hospital, and she's not okay right now. And so we need to create some rules for our house. And you've probably heard me talk about this on the show multiple times. It works really well here. And what we're doing is we're going to go to like Michael's. We're going to go to a hardware store and get a big piece of board or whatever. And we're going to doll it up and make it nice. And we're going to write the Lawrence, let's say your last name's Smith, the Smith family rules. This is who the Smiths are. And they're less rules, but they're more values. So let's call it that, the Smith values. And I want your kids, especially your son, but your daughter too, for them to have input on this. Who are we? And I want y'all to make it a fun exercise, get ice cream and whatever their favorite food is. Make it a fun thing where y'all are writing things down, and then you're going to paint it on this board, and then you're going to hang it up in the living room even if it doesn't match. Here's where we're getting at. When your son hits somebody, you are not punishing him. He is choosing to go meet with the police. And what we're slowly going to do is teach him that he has a choice in how his day goes. Not that he's going to do something that will cut off relationship. Because right now, he knows he can push you far enough that his punishment is disassociation with dad. That you will use your relationship with him as a weapon. You did this, you have to go out of here. I'm casting you away from me. And I want to flip that on its head, and I want him to understand that when I do this, I'm choosing to leave dad, and I don't like to do that. Because right now he's trying to see how far I can push you before you're going to go to. How far can I push my teacher before she disappears on me like mom did? And what we want to do is teach him any disappearing is going to be a choice that you're making. And dude, it breaks. This is how I tell my kids. These are my exact words. It breaks my heart that I'm choosing to have my heart broken right now, that you chose to leave the room for 30 minutes or for an hour or to not go fishing with us. I'm choosing to be sad about that because I only like fishing when you're with me, and you just chose to do XYZ, not study for this test, to not whatever, and you chose to not go, and I can't stand that. Please don't make that choice ever again because I don't like fishing without you. You see how we're flipped? And now I'm telling you, it's a light switch night and day in my home, okay? Because they feel this strong sense of ownership about it. Now, like all of us, sometimes it's like, yeah, it's worth it. I'm going to drive 70 over the speed limit, and if I get caught, I get caught, right? But most of the time, I'm watching this thing shift, okay? Now, let's get to the meds. I do believe that your kid is in line for some sort of psycho eval, okay?
Sure.
As a parent, I cannot speak to us as a psychiatrist, so I'm just going to tell you, you and I are hanging out on grabbing a drink, and you and I just met, and we're just hanging out, okay? This is what I would tell you about what I would do with my kids. I feel hyper strong about benzodiazepines as a no-no, okay? I have it written into my psychiatric power of attorney that if I get institutionalized, they still can't give me those drugs. I'd rather be institutionalized than be on those drugs and out into the world, okay? So I have a very strong, and that's off of Anna Lemke's work and any number of psychiatrists who are now beginning to write more and more about this ongoing benzo crisis that we got. I will also say that there are some SSRIs that are magic for dealing with anxiety. There are.
Do you mind just elaborating what the benzodiazepine and SSRI are?
It's a selective serotonin reuptake inhibitor, right? So there are two different medications that have two different brain chemistry pathways. One basically it's just the way the synapses, the neurons talk to each other across synapse, and SSRIs are going to be traditional stuff like Prozac, right? And it simply keeps more stuff hanging around. Benzos are the Xanaxes of the world, and it's a rabbit hole, okay? And so I would have no problem if I sat down with somebody and they said, all right, we've done all this stuff. Your son, at this point, he's so dysregulated. His alarm system is so sensitive right now. Like, dude, you've been in a hotel where you're steaming up the shower, and it sets off the fire alarm, the smoke alarm. That's just an out of tune. It's a dysfunctional alarm system. Your 11-year-old may be there, and that's okay. What an SSRI is going to do is going to help turn that alarm down a little bit. It will not solve the problem, but what it will allow him to do is to then go sit with a counselor, to then begin to regulate some of these behaviors that you and I were just talking about a minute ago. And be very open with the doctors about mom's opioid addiction, about the prenatal use of opioids, and your concerns about addictive behaviors. And any good psychiatrist will walk alongside you in that journey. Tell them that you want to try any and all behavioral interventions before you get medication, okay? But I do think a psycho eval is important right now, okay? That doesn't mean they're going to take your kid from you and dope them up for eternity. You're still the parent, okay? Now,
that's my concern.
If you sit with the doctor and they say, look, you talked to some nut job on a podcast who said stay away from benzos. We think this is the best thing for you right now. You can say, great, I'm going to go get a second opinion, and go get a second opinion and tell that psychiatrist exactly what happened. I went in saying, if we have to do meds, let's do SSRIs. They forced benzos. Do you agree with that? And dude, they're the doctors and I'm not. And so at some point you have to decide, I'm going to go off into the woods and treat this on my own, or I'm going to listen to the doctors. And I also know that you got burned bad by them in the past. You lost the love of your life. And all she did was whatever the doctors told her, right?
That's right.
That's right. And so this is a scary season right now. So all I'm telling you is how I would approach this if these were my kids. I cannot give you medical advice, and I can't give you even therapeutic advice because I don't have that sort of relationship with you or your kid. But I'm just telling you what I would do if it was my kid. Ultimately, I think your kid needs some professional intervention, and I also absolutely understand your discomfort with that. It's well earned.
I'm just also worried that my daughter might ultimately hit down the same path.
I think there's every reason to believe that. Here's the deal: some kids respond by punching kids. Other kids respond with straight A's. Often young girls will exhibit ADHD and anxiety by getting really quiet and following all the rules. And so we don't know what's going on inside of them because we're just looking for the demonstrative behaviors that are going to either violate whatever rules we have, or they're going to cause further chaos. And so, yes, I would expect growing up in the home of an addict with a mother who used while she was in utero, and all of the relational chaos and the divorce, I would expect there to be challenges with your daughter as well. That's why getting upstream with dad connection, with skin-to-skin contact, with, hey, I'm teaching you what choice looks like. I'm teaching you what the gap between stimulus and response looks like. All of those things are going to create a new household. And so going all the way back to the very first thing I told you, we're not looking for, well, it's because mom left, because here's the natural tendency is, then I'm going to find somebody to replace mom. And that's not how that works. What we need to do is we need to change the entire air in that home. And let me tell you one last thing. You, my friend, have got to do some healing work on your own. Is that fair?
Yes.
Yeah. Your son, and I don't say this in a shaming way, I say this in an empowering way, is absorbing your tension and chaos too. Okay? And so one of the greatest gifts you could give him is for you to go see somebody and begin getting well yourself. Is that fair?
That is fair.
Okay. You will also give him a picture of what a grown man who's going to get help looks like. And that would be one of the greatest gifts you can give him long term. Okay?
Yes.
So please go see a psychiatrist or go see a professional, okay? It's expensive to get an eval, very, very expensive. And if you get a good one, it can be worth its weight in gold, and it will give a roadmap to you. And do not hesitate to speak up. And also, don't hesitate to get a second opinion if you're uncomfortable, okay?
Okay.
Is that fair?
Something's got to change.
There you go.
But I'm just, I don't want to lose my kids.
That's right.
They're great little people.
In the same, if you will introduce the choice language that I was talking about in your home, instead of yelling, and by the way, from this call on, we don't yell anymore. Cool?
I've been working on that.
I know. But let's don't work on it anymore. Let's just say no more. And here's what we're going to do. You're going to introduce choice to your kids very, very soon, like this weekend probably. And when you are about to blow, I want you to look at your son or your daughter and say, I'm choosing to step away for a minute so that I can be in control of my body. And then I want you to step away for a minute and go walk around the house. And then you come back and you are teaching your son, you're giving him a picture of what regulating your body looks like, regulating your emotions looks like, then when that hurt and fire come up, how to release it. Because those punches he's throwing, that's just his version of you yelling. It's that overrun of emotion, right? And so I want you to lead the charge in your home on showing what this looks like. And that also means you got to get some counseling ASAP, brother. Will you do that?
Yes. I did a little bit, but I clearly have work to do.
I want you to go into a counselor and say, I want to heal and be well. I don't just want to talk endlessly for the next 9 months. I want to learn to heal and be well.
Okay.
And let's start there. Okay. There's going to be a lot of action, not a lot. There's going to be some talking for sure. There's going to be a lot of action, a lot of changing your behaviors. Okay. I want you to stay on the line. I'm going to send you a copy of my new book, Own Your Past, Change Your Future. Here's the deal. At some point, you're going to sit down and you're going to own what happened. Your whole world blew up. Your wife got sick and your whole world blew up. And then you have to be about, what are we going to do next? Okay. So hang on the line here. We're going to send it to you. Do you commit to going to see somebody yourself and taking your kid to see somebody? I want to hear you say it.
I'm going to heal myself to make my kids better.
Nope. You're going to heal yourself because you're worth being loved, my man.
Okay.
Hey, you didn't fail your
right.
wife, dude. Stop carrying that around. You did not fail her.
I hear you.
The medical system did. She struggled she probably has a whole lineage. You got to set that down, man. This isn't on you. You didn't fail. Did you drop pills in her drinks?
Clearly not.
Okay. Well, some of the calls I get on the show aren't so clear. You didn't fail. So you're not going to get well for your kids. You're going to get well for you because you deserve to be well. And by doing that, they're going to have a chance to be well too. They're lucky to have you, my man. And starting today, everything is different. Everything's different. Hang on the line here. We're going to get you the stuff. And if you would like, we can clip this call for you raw and send it to you so that you don't have to wait a month before this thing launches and have some of that info. So we'll see if we can get that to you in the next couple of days.